Hello, I'm Claire, and this is your 45-minute Yin class. So Yin is a little bit different to Vinyasa and Hatha Yoga in that we're holding mainly seated postures for 4 to 6 minutes. The idea is we start to target the connective tissue, and predominantly the fascia, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on. We're going to get started in a seated meditation, so find yourself in a comfortable seat, whether, like me, you're sat on a bolster or on some bricks, or whether you're me sat kneeling with the legs out in front of you. Relax the hands down onto the thighs, take a deep inhale through the nose, and sigh out through the mouth. Close the eyes, close the mouth, allow the breath to come in and out through the nose. Just taking a moment to settle into your body and to settle into your practice. If you've had a busy day, start to allow your body to slow down, and in turn allowing the mind to slow down. Notice your breath. Just notice the length of that breath and the natural rhythm and pattern. You don't need to change anything just yet. And just be aware if you're holding on to any tension, see if you can let it go. You might need to take a bit of a wriggle, but then bring yourself back to stillness. Just notice what's going on in the mind. Maybe you're thinking about the events of the day. You're thinking about things yet to come. Try and let it go. Just tune back into that breath. Follow the length of your inhale and the length of your exhale. Now you might be working with a particular intention. It could be something physical. You may be here to release a bit of tension, to feel a bit more ease in your movement. Maybe you're here for a bit of headspace, more of a meditative practice. If you're not really sure, think about dedicating your practice to somebody else. Offer up your energy to someone who needs it more than you do. Whatever your focus for today's class, bring it to the front of your mind and allow it to anchor you into the present moment when your mind inevitably wanders off. Take a deep inhale through the nose, sigh out through the mouth, drop the chin to the chest and let the head roll from left to right. Start to roll out the shoulders, wiggle the fingers and blink your eyes open. So our first posture is graceful bow. And we're going to stay in this seated position, so do make sure you're comfortable. You're going to take your right hand behind your back, and ideally it's going to reach all the way around the inside of your left elbow. If that's not particularly comfortable, you can always take that right hand to the small of the lower back. From here, we're going to drop the chin to the chest, and then we're going to look over towards the right shoulder. So we're getting a stretch into the left side of the neck. Now, once you've found that position, really try and let go of tension. So try and release the right hand. Just allow the fingers to hook onto that left elbow or to rest against the lower back. But try and let go of any force or effort here. Graceful bow is quite often a subtle posture. You might not be feeling a lot right now. It's usually in the rebound that we start to feel this one. Feel free to close the eyes and just focus on your breath. See if you can soften the front of your rib cage. Keep checking back in with the body. See if there's anywhere that you can do less. You might notice the longer we hold this posture, the easier it feels, the more the chin starts to drop, the looser the neck feels. Taking your final few breaths on this side. To release out of the posture, you're going to draw your chin back to center. Roll it all the way up and release the hand. Right hand is coming down onto the thigh, and then we're going to take that left hand either behind the back to the small of the lower back, or all the way around, hooking the fingers to the inside of that right elbow. Then from here we drop the chin down to the chest and start to roll it over to the left shoulder. Now you might find that you get more of a stretch or more sensation on one side than the other. And that's totally normal. Don't be put off by that. If it does become a little bit too intense, you can always lift the head slightly, and that will release the sensation. Again, close the eyes and see if you can do less. Really softening that left hand. Softening the front of the ribs, the shoulders, allowing the chin to drop down. Just noticing the breath. Noticing if it started to slow down. Think about directing that breath down towards the belly, deepening the breath. Final few breaths on this side. To exit the posture, rolling the chin back to center, lifting the head up and releasing the left hand down to the thigh. We're just going to keep the eyes closed and keep the head still and just notice what you feel. Maybe it's still really subtle. Maybe it's a tingling or a warmth around the neck, coming into the shoulders. Maybe it's a feeling of length. This is what we call the rebound. So in Yin, we always follow the postures with a rebound, where we come to a position where we can completely let go of the previous posture and notice the effects within the body. Slowly blink the eyes open. So the next one we're coming into is twisted cross, and it's for the upper body. So you're going to come to lie onto your tummy. You're going to bring the right hand underneath the right shoulder, and you're going to extend the left arm out long. Relax the head down onto the mat. You're going to bend the right knee, and you're going to send the foot behind you, dropping the foot down to the floor. Now we should be feeling a stretch coming into the left shoulder and the left side of the chest. If it's too intense, you can drop the right knee and allow the chest to roll back down towards the floor. If you want to make it more intense, you can really lift that right knee, and you're going to press through the right hand, so we're stacking the right shoulder above the left. If you want to go even deeper, you could take that right hand behind the back, maybe interlace the fingers and pull away. Once you've found your position, just start to settle here. Again, we can close the eyes or just fix the gaze on a point on the floor. So you might be feeling some sensation, not just in the shoulder, but also into the lower back, maybe around the glutes. If this gets too intense, you can always just drop that right knee, and that will release the twist. So I mentioned at the beginning that we're focusing onto connective tissue. So in other forms of yoga, such as vinyasa, hatha, ashtanga, we call these Yang yoga because we're mainly focusing on the muscles. It's usually a dynamic practice, quite repetitive. We're focusing on strengthening, but then also stretching and releasing. In Yin, we have a different approach. So it's slower, gradual. It's a quiet practice and it's quite gentle. And this is because we're focusing on the yin tissues. So this is connective tissue. You might know this as ligament, tendon, joint capsule, but we're mainly focusing onto fascia. Fascia is quite a complex subject, but it's easily described as a spider web that runs throughout the body. It runs through our muscles, encases our organs, and we've got a fascial stocking or sheath that surrounds the whole body. And it's this superficial layer of fascia that we focus on in Yin. If the whole concept of fascia is a little bit too big to comprehend, you can think of it like putting on jeans just starting to come out the tumble dryer. It feels quite tight. And sometimes the fascia, if it's tight, can restrict our movement. But just like the longer that you wear jeans and you move into them, you stretch them, they start to become a little bit more comfortable. You start to get range of motion back. It's the same with the fascia. The longer we hold these stretches, the more the fascia starts to release, becomes a little bit more malleable. Take your final few breaths on this side. And moving slowly, you're going to roll onto the tummy. Release that right leg out long. Draw the left hand in underneath the shoulder and extend the right arm out, palm facing down. Bend up the left knee. You're going to send that foot behind you, drop the head. And again, just find the place where you want to hold this stretch. Now you might find you need a slightly different arrangement on this side than the first, and that's okay. If one side is a little bit tighter, you might drop the chest down towards the ground. You might drop the knee. Wherever you are, make sure you're comfortable. We're just focusing on the breath. Breathing deep into the belly. Lengthening that breath. And just noticing how the mind starts to slow down. Now's a good time to check in and see where the mind has taken you. You might be in that place just before sleep. We are starting to daydream as your mind pieces together different bits of information that you've accumulated throughout the day. Maybe you're running over events or conversations that have already happened. Maybe you're thinking about the future, things that are yet to come. Can you focus your mind onto the present moment? A simple way to do this is to use a mantra. The mantra you might choose is just breathe. Inhale just. Exhale breathe. It's a self-fulfilling mantra, reminding you that all you have to do right now is breathe. Repeating that mantra over and over in the back of the mind. Allowing the mind to relax. Take your final few breaths on this side. we're going to slowly roll back to center. We're going to take a rebound on our front. So you're going to bring the hands either underneath the forehead, making a pillow, or you might choose to take the hands down the side of the body and drop the head down. Just closing the eyes. Noticing what you feel in the body. Again, it might be a tingling. You might feel a little bit tender or sore in those areas we are focusing on. That's totally normal. Start to wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders, press back through a child's pose, and then roll up to center. So we're going to come into a stretch for the lower body now. We're coming into shoelace. So for this one, you're going to extend both legs out in front of you. You're going to draw the right knee into the chest, and you're going to take it up and over the top of the left leg. You want to try and get the little toe edge of that foot on the floor, and then wriggle that foot out so the knees are stacking. Then from here, we're going to bend the bottom knee in, and you're going to see how this feels. We want to root both sides of the pelvis down. If this is a little bit too tight, you've got some options available. You might choose to take box instead. So we're going to send the knees out towards the side so we can stack the right ankle on top of the left knee. You're going to wriggle the left foot forwards, the shin is parallel to the front of the mat, and then your right knee should be stacking directly above the left ankle. If the knee is a little bit higher than the ankle, like mine, you can always take a brick, slide it underneath, just for a bit more support. And if this still isn't particularly comfortable, instead you can drop that right foot in front of the left shin, and you might choose to wriggle the feet forwards a little bit. Now, whichever variation you've taken, you want to be feeling some sensation around the glutes. From here, we're then going to lean forwards, and this is where you want to have your props. You might be completely comfortable dropping down. You might choose to take your bolster, place it on its end, and give it a hug, and just drop the head forwards, or you might use your brick. As long as you feel a sensation through the glutes and down length the spine, then you know they're in the right place. So just softening here, closing the eyes, settling in. Now, if this is quite a big posture for you, just notice what you feel and try and pinpoint it. If you are asked to describe the sensation, what adjectives would you use? Is it quite widespread? Is it just in one place? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it tingly? Just notice exactly what you're experiencing. You might notice that you've already found a bit of release and you can move a little bit deeper. And this is probably the muscles and the nerves just telling the body that it's safe to stretch here. But just watch the rest of this sensation and notice how it changes. Notice how maybe a little bit more range opens up. It's totally up to you if you want to move into it. In Yin, we're not looking to move to full range of motion all the time. These little releases we're starting to feel now we've passed the 2-minute mark. This is more likely to be fascial. So it takes roughly about 2 minutes for fascia to start to release. Fascia, when it's left to its own devices, becomes a little bit gel-like and sticky, and adhesions can form between the different layers. As we put this gradual, continual stress on the fascia through stretching, it starts to go through a phase change and becomes more liquid-like and therefore more malleable. We start to loosen those adhesions and the surfaces of the fascia slide along each other. You're approaching your final minute. So if you feel like you want to move a little deeper, go for it. You might let go of your props, and you might just drop all the way down. But just see if you can release here. So I always want to ask, can we do less? Can you let gravity do most of the work for you? Notice as the torso becomes a little heavier. Can you relax the back of the neck? Let the head hang heavy. Now before we exit this pose, just notice the position you're in now compared to where you started. Maybe the change is quite minimal. Maybe it's quite profound. Slowly rolling up to center, moving really gradually. And then you're going to take the hands behind the back. You're going to uncross the legs, extend them out long. We're going to come into second side. You might want to give those legs a little shake in and out before we get there. So left leg is coming into the chest. Step that foot up and over the top of the right leg, little toe edge of the foot on the floor, and just wriggle it out towards the right side of the mat. Then you're going to bend the bottom knee and see if you can get both knees stacking while both sides of the pelvis root down. From here, you might just drop forwards, or you might use your bolster or maybe some bricks. Again, if this is too much, you've got the option to come into box. Make sure you wriggle that bottom foot forwards so that your shin is parallel to the front of the mat. And if this doesn't work, you can drop that left foot in front of the right shin, and you might wriggle the feet further out. It's the same here for folding forwards. Just drop as far as feels good for you. And as long as you're feeling sensation around the outside of the pelvis through the glutes, then you know you're in the right place. So we've got another 4 minutes on this side. And you might find that, again, you've got a little bit of a difference in range of motion or mobility. You might find you're not going anywhere near as far. Or maybe you suddenly feel like you've got lots more freedom on this side. It's just settling in, focusing on your breath. Again, you can come back to that mantra. Inhale just. Exhale, breathe. Notice if what you feel on this side is the same as the first. Is it more or less intense? And again, checking back in with the mind. Where has it taken you? And if your thoughts are stressful, just not things you really want to be thinking about right now, change the narrative. You're always in control of your own thoughts, even at the times when it feels like you're not. You can always think about something that makes you happy, something that makes you smile. Think about something you're proud of, something that's going well in your life. Don't allow yourself to become a prisoner in your own mind. Again, noticing if you're getting more releases, allowing you to drop further into the posture. We're not looking for full range of motion. But if you start to lose sensation, if you're not really feeling a stretch, that's when you can think about moving a little deeper. Or if you just want to intensify that stretch. You're into your final minute. Again, you might choose to get rid of the props and to just drop all the way down. Before we exit, notice where you are now in comparison to the beginning of the posture, and where you are on this side in comparison to the end of the first side. And slowly rolling up to center. Take the hands behind your back, uncross the legs. From here, we're going to take our rebound onto our back. So just moving the props out of the way, coming down onto the back, extending the arms and the legs, dropping the head down. Noticing what you feel. It's really common, particularly in postures where we've had a lot of sensation, to feel a bit tender, a bit vulnerable as we move out. Might feel a little bit sore. And this might happen if you're newer to the yin practice. It's completely normal, so don't worry. But just ride the wave of that sensation. Notice how it dissipates. And then start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. You're going to roll over to one side and then push up to a seated position. So the next one we're coming into is caterpillar, which is a forward fold. Now, if you practice vinyasa or hatha, you might recognize this as Paschimottanasana. However, we call it caterpillar, so that makes it clear that we have a completely different approach to it. In a vinyasa practice, you might be used to holding onto the sides of your feet and pulling yourself forwards into it. However, in yin, we want to do less. We want to let gravity do the work. More than likely, you're going to need your bolster. We'll have the legs out in front of us. You're going to stack the bolster on top of the legs, and you might just drop over here. If you've got bricks, you might take a brick, place it on its end, and you can rest the forehead down onto it. Now, this might give you enough sensation. It might not be enough. If it's not enough, you can always just drop straight over and just release here. Again, the option is there to take a brick, maybe placing it in between the shins and just drop the forehead down. If, however, that felt a bit too intense, you can always take the bolster onto its end, give it a hug, and just drop the head onto it. So I'm going to be here for 4 minutes. So just finding a position that works for you. Now in caterpillar, we're feeling sensation down the back line of the body. We're putting stress onto the superficial backline of fascia. And the superficial backline runs from the eyebrows, over the top of the head, down the back of the skull, all the way down the back of the body, back to the legs, to the soles of the feet, and it finishes at the top of the big toe. So where you feel it in this posture might change throughout the posture, and it might change each time you come into it. You're likely to be feeling something down the length of your spine, but maybe also down the backs of the legs, maybe around the hamstrings, maybe back to the knees. You don't ever want to be in a point of pain in yin. So if it is too intense, if your breathing has started to change, that's when you can start to ease out of the posture. It is common in yin, but although it's not painful, some postures aren't particularly comfortable, and that's okay. We're getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is where our meditation practice can really benefit. Just focusing onto the breath. Inhale, just. Exhale, breathe. And this is where our yin practice can translate into everyday life off the mat. Throughout the 24 hours of our day, it's not always going to be comfortable and happy situations. But if we can get used to being uncomfortable in yin and just breathing through it, then we know that if we're in uncomfortable situations in everyday life, we can come back to the breath. We can find that place of quiet, of peace inside, and know that we can make it through. Again, you might find the longer we're here, the more you can start to release. So you might be choosing to get rid of the props and just dropping down. You might be slightly adjusting your position. We're into the final minute. Again, no force, no effort, doing less. Allowing gravity to take control. Taking your final few breaths here. Now, particularly if you've come quite low into this posture, as you exit the pose, move really slowly, almost as if you're moving in bed. Press the hands down into the floor and walk yourself up to center. As we come into our rebound, you're going to take it down onto the back. And again, releasing all the way down. Closing the eyes and riding the wave of that sensation. Notice if your rebound feels the same as the others. It's possible that after a posture where you've had a lot of sensation, you get a bigger rebound. There's no right or wrong here. Just notice your experience. Start to wiggle the fingers and the toes, rolling over to one side and pushing up to a seated position. So our next posture we're coming into is for the front body. So we're going to lie onto the tummy. We're coming into Sphinx with the option for seal. So you might want to have your bolster handy for this one. We're going to come down onto the front with the forearms down, and we're aiming to get the elbows underneath the shoulders. You want to think about sending the chest through the upper arms, but again, we're not trying to pull so much as just release here. You might find that you need a little bit of support, so you might choose to take your bolster in front of you. And you're just going to put it in front of your chest so you've got something to lean into, so it's almost holding you into this position. So you've got the option to stay here for the whole posture. We're going to be here for 4 minutes. Or you might choose to come up into seal, which I'll show you in just a moment. So settling in, You might choose to keep the head up. You might drop it down. If you feel like you need a bit more support, you could put a brick underneath the forehead. So you should be feeling a stretching sensation down the front of the torso. It might stretch all the way down to the hip flexors. Maybe it's just across the chest. So it's in yin that we notice that although the different muscles have got different names, the whole body is connected, working as one integrated machine. Although mainly we're feeling that stretch, maybe in the tummy or the chest, there's those remnants of sensation down into the hip flexors. Again, this is the fascia, the superficial front lines. You might also be feeling a little bit of gentle compression in the lower back. Compression in yoga is sometimes a bit of a dirty word. In the yin practice, it's totally safe, as long as there's no pain. Compression can be quite healthy for our joints, quite healthy for our bones, stimulating regeneration, the clearing away of old cells, regeneration of new cells. Now, if you feel like you want to take it a little bit deeper, you might be pressing through the hands, extending the arms, coming up into seal. I like to take my bolster a little bit closer towards me, so I've got a bit more support underneath my chest. If this doesn't feel enough, you can always walk the hands a little bit closer, and that will just bring you into more of a back bend, giving you more sensation through the front of the torso and more compression in the back. In a vinyasa or a hatha practice, quite often we'll say press out at the shoulder joints. But again, here, feel free to sink down as long as there's no pain. If you feel like you've over-egged it, you've come in a bit too far, you can always walk those hands a bit further away. You can bring the forearms back down to the mat. Constantly noticing if you can do less. Taking your final few breaths. So as you start to move out of this posture, you're going to release the bolster and you come to lie down onto the front. We're going to rebound here. Again, you might take the hands underneath the forehead as a pillow, or maybe extend the arms alongside the body. Just notice what you feel. And then start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. Place the hands underneath the shoulders, and we're going to press back and come up to a seated position. So we're going to close out the practice with supported child's pose. So for this one, you're going to need your bolster. You're going to bring the big toes to touch and knees are going wide, and the bolster is coming in between the knees. From here, we're dropping the chest down. You're going to drop the head either straight down, or you might choose to take it to one side or the other. Now, for this posture, if you find that your chest goes down, but then your hips lift up, you want to bring the bolster up to meet you. So you're going to take a brick or two underneath the bolster, keep the pelvis down onto the heels, and then drop the chest forwards. Once you've found your position, just close the eyes and settle in. Noticing any sensation or release around the hips, maybe along the back. Just see if you can melt your chest down into the bolster. And again, checking back in with the mind. Where has it taken you? Has it started to slow down? Do you need to come back to that mantra? Just breathe. If you've had your head to one side, at this point you might want to turn it the other way, just so you even out the stretch along the neck. Noticing the pattern of your breath. Maybe it's a little slower, a little deeper. Noticing how the body feels. Maybe a bit more relaxed, a bit heavier. See if you can let go of any residual tension. Taking your final few breaths. Now for your final rebound, you might choose to stay in a child's pose. You might come to lie onto the front or maybe lying onto the back. But slowly rolling up, releasing your props to one side and finding your final rebound. Allowing the body to become heavy. Softening into the floor. Again, riding the wave of that sensation. Letting go of any control of the breath. Just enjoying these final few moments of stillness. These final few moments of quiet. Within the fingers, within the toes. When you're ready, you're going to roll over to one side. Push up to a comfortable seated position, keeping your eyes closed. Bring the hands to prayer in heart center. Take an inhale, lengthen through the spine. Exhale, bow the head down towards the prayer. Take a moment to notice how you feel, both mentally and physically. Come back to your intention, or whoever it was you were dedicating your practice to. And take the thumbs, the space between the eyebrows, the third eye. Practice, and all is coming. Namaste. Thank you for practicing with me today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that and you're feeling a little bit more zen. I'll see you on the mat soon.